The letter was waiting on my front door when I got home from work. I didn't even open it right away. Living in our neighborhood meant getting HOA letters all the time. Most of them were warnings about trash cans, grass, or some tiny thing nobody cared about. But this envelope felt different. It was thicker. I opened it while standing in my driveway. The first page made my stomach drop. Outstanding HOA, balance $10,000, payment due within 10 days. I read the number again. $10,000? There had to be a mistake. I had never missed a payment in 7 years. I walked straight to the HOA office the next morning with every payment receipt I had saved. Karen was already sitting behind the front desk like she had been expecting me. She looked at the paper in my hand and smiled. I guess you finally saw it. I placed my receipts on her desk. Every payment is here, so explain why you're charging me $10,000. She didn't even look at them. Our records say otherwise. My records say I paid every month. She leaned back in her chair. Our records matter. Yours don't. People sitting in the waiting room stopped talking. Everyone was watching. I asked for a meeting with the HOA president. Karen folded her arms. He's busy. I'll wait. He won't see you. Something felt wrong, not unfair, planned. As I turned to leave, one older neighbor quietly stepped beside me. He kept his voice low. Don't argue here. I looked at him. He glanced over his shoulder to make sure Karen wasn't listening. Then he whispered, You're not the first person this happened to. Before I could ask another question, Karen shouted across the office. Oh, one more thing. I turned around. She handed me another envelope. You'll also owe another $5,000 once the investigation is finished. I stared at her. Investigation? What investigation? She smiled again. You'll find out soon enough. I walked out holding both envelopes, completely confused. Nothing in either letter explained where the money came from. No dates, no violations, no details. Just 2 huge bills and a warning that my home could be taken if I didn't pay. That night I spread every receipt, bank statement, and HOA letter across my dining table. Everything matched. Every payment had cleared my bank. So why were they acting like I owed $15,000? Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Only 6 words appeared on the screen. Don't pay them. They're hiding something. At that moment, I realized this wasn't just about my house anymore. I stared at the message for almost a full minute. There was no name, no number I recognized, just those 6 words. I typed back. Who is this? Nothing. No reply. The next morning, I decided not to tell anyone about the text. If someone inside the neighborhood was trying to help me, I didn't want to scare them away. Instead, I went to my bank. The manager printed every payment I had made to the HOA over the last 7 years. Every check had cleared. Every online payment had been accepted. The money was gone from my account and deposited into the HOA's account. That should have ended everything. But it only made the mystery worse. I returned to the HOA office carrying a thick folder. Karen saw me walk in and rolled her eyes. Back again? I laid the bank records on the counter. My bank confirmed every payment. You have the money. She didn't even touch the papers. Our accounting department says you still owe $10,000. So your records are wrong. She smiled. Our records are never wrong. Before I could answer, a man in a suit stepped out of the back office. He introduced himself as the HOA attorney. He didn't ask to see my proof. He simply handed me another document. We are beginning legal action. I looked at the paper. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a notice saying they could place a lien on my house. I couldn't believe it. You haven't even explained the charges. The board isn't required to discuss an ongoing investigation. There is no investigation. The attorney looked at me without showing any emotion. That is not our position. I left before I said something I'd regret. Outside, the same older neighbor was waiting near his truck. He looked nervous. You need to stop going in there alone. What do you know? He looked around before speaking. 3 families already paid. I frowned. They paid because they thought they had no choice. What happened to them? They sold their homes a few months later. My stomach tightened. Why? They couldn't afford what came after. What came after? He looked straight into my eyes. The extra $5,000. Before I could ask another question, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The older man suddenly went quiet. His face lost all color. They're watching, he whispered. Then he got into his truck and drove away without another word. I looked toward the SUV. The windows were too dark to see inside. but I had the strange feeling someone was staring directly at me. That evening, I checked my mailbox. Another envelope. This time there wasn't a bill. There was only one sheet of paper. Across the top, in large bold letters, it read, "Confidential property audit." At the bottom was a sentence that made my heart stop. "Failure to cooperate may result in immediate foreclosure proceedings." I had never heard of a property audit, and somehow, I knew that was exactly what they wanted. I didn't sleep that night. The words "immediate foreclosure proceedings" kept running through my mind. The next morning, I called the phone number printed on the audit notice. No one answered. I left a message. Hours passed. Nothing. So I decided to visit the county records office myself. If the HOA was claiming something about my property, I wanted to see every document connected to my house. The clerk listened carefully as I explained everything. Then she searched my address. A few minutes later, she frowned. "That's strange." "What is?" "There isn't any foreclosure request." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "If the HOA was really starting foreclosure, there should already be paperwork in the system." "There isn't?" She slowly shook her head. "Nothing." That was the first time I realized someone was lying. I asked for copies of every document connected to my property. While the printer was running, the clerk looked at me again. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Did they also tell you about the special assessment?" I stared at her. "What special assessment?" She looked confused. "I've heard several homeowners asking about it this month." "I've never received anything except these bills." She quietly leaned closer. "If I were you, I'd read every HOA meeting record." Those words stayed with me all the way home. That evening, I started going through the HOA website. Most of the meeting minutes had been removed. The older files wouldn't open. Some pages showed an error. Others had simply disappeared. It looked like someone had cleaned everything out. Then I remembered something. Years ago, I had downloaded a few meeting records when the HOA tried to change our parking rules. I searched through an old hard drive in my garage. After almost an hour, I found the folder. Inside were meeting minutes going back 4 years. I opened one after another. Nothing. Then one file caught my eye. A page had been added after the official meeting ended. It wasn't signed. It wasn't approved, but it listed something called Emergency Community Improvement Assessment. The amount beside each home made my eyes widen. $5,000. Exactly the same amount Karen had demanded from me. There was only one problem, the page clearly said. Proposal only, vote required before collection. I searched every other document. There was no vote. No approval. Nothing. Someone had tried to charge homeowners for a fee that had never legally existed. My heart started racing. Was that where the extra $5,000 came from? Before I could think any further, someone knocked on my front door. I looked through the window. It wasn't Karen. It wasn't the police. It was the HOA president. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he looked terrified. When I opened the door, the HOA president looked nothing like the confident man I had seen at community meetings. He kept looking over his shoulder before speaking. "We need to talk. And we can't do it here." I followed him to a small coffee shop a few miles away. The moment we sat down, he slid a flash drive across the table. "I should have stopped this months ago." "What is this?" "Everything." He took a deep breath. Karen and 2 board members created fake balances in the accounting system. They picked homeowners who always paid on time because they believed those people would panic and pay without asking questions. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The $10,000? Completely fake. And the extra $5,000? That was never approved. They planned to call it an emergency assessment after enough people had already paid. I stared at him. Why tell me now? His hands were shaking because they started changing documents and blaming me. If this comes out, they want me to take the fall. The flash drive contained emails, bank records, meeting recordings, and security footage from the HOA office. One video showed Karen telling another board member, "Most people never fight back. They just write the check." That sentence made my blood boil. The next morning, I hired an attorney. He smiled after reviewing the evidence. "This is bigger than an HOA dispute." Within days, the evidence was turned over to county investigators. Real detectives compared the HOA records with bank deposits. The numbers didn't match. Thousands of dollars had disappeared. Several official meeting minutes had been edited after the meetings ended. Even signatures had been copied onto documents that board members never approved. The investigation spread through the neighborhood faster than anyone expected. Families who had quietly paid came forward with their own letters. One neighbor had been charged $8,000. Another had paid nearly $20,000 because she was afraid of losing her home. Every story matched the same pattern: pressure, threats, fake deadlines. Then everything collapsed. The county froze the HOA's financial accounts while the investigation continued. Karen tried to tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. Then investigators played the office, recording where she admitted they expected homeowners to pay without asking questions. The room went silent. A few minutes later, she was escorted out in front of the same neighbors she had spent years intimidating. The two board members who helped her resigned before the meeting ended. The fake assessments were canceled. Every false lien was removed. Homeowners who had paid received refunds through the court process, and a new board was elected with independent financial oversight. A month later, I received one final envelope from the HOA. For a second, my heart skipped. Then I opened it. Inside was a single page. It wasn't another bill. It was an official letter confirming that my balance was $0 and that every false charge against my property had been permanently erased. I folded the letter, looked across my yard, and smiled. Karen thought fear would make people stay quiet. She was wrong. One person asked a simple question. One neighbor decided to speak. One piece of evidence exposed everything. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, "Show me the proof." That one sentence didn't just save my home. It uncovered the truth that an entire neighborhood had been afraid to face. Like and subscribe for more amazing stories.